In the last part, after Li Ruotai's man lost to Shen Guangjuan, Wu Chen stood out and suggested that he would play against them himself. Welcome to Chapter Chronicles, subscribe for manga recaps. Upon seeing a young man arrive to play with the expert he had brought, Shen Guangjuan laughed and made a joke about Li Ruotai's lack of better options, so he sent Wu Chen, who appeared too young and inexperienced, to gift him more money. However, Li Ruotai had not arranged for Wu Chen to play, as he was unaware of his gambling skills, and Li Ruobing knew even less. The two had only met for the first time that day. As soon as Shen Guangjuan's expert sat down with Wu Chen, he began to observe him carefully, since gambling experts often rely on micro-expressions and habitual movements to read their opponents, which takes experience. Seeing Wu Chen's youthful appearance, he assumed he lacked the necessary experience. However, little did he know that Wu Chen was not like other young people, having experienced 1,000 years of reincarnation in a single day and already having mastered the art of gambling to the highest level. After discussing with her younger brother, Li Ruobing rushed toward Wu Chen at lightning speed and asked, "Darling, are you sure you can do this? If not, we can switch to someone else." Wu Chen smiled and joked, "Am I not good enough? I can tell you without exaggeration that I can win in any casino in the world as long as I want to." The game between Wu Chen and the expert began, and he quickly noticed that Wu Chen never looked at the hidden cards. He realized that this could be his habit. In the first round, the opponent folded, and throughout the next 20 rounds, Wu Chen emerged victorious every time. Li Ruotai watched her brother-in-law winning every hand and started taunting Shen Guangjuan. "Mr. Shen, it seems like your player's luck is turning sour." However, Shen Guangjuan remained composed and replied, "Maybe it's Mr. Li's turn to have some good luck." Although Shen Guangjuan lost many rounds in a row, he didn't mind at all because Wu Chen had already fallen into the traps set by them. It was the habit of the expert he invited. By intentionally losing to Wu Chen at the beginning, he could quickly analyze his opponent's psychological state and strike back to win big. In the man's eyes, Li Ruotai had already lost 200 million and couldn't give up now. Once Wu Chen's chips ran low, he would surely add more, and that's when he would reap the most. Meanwhile, the 30th round of the match had officially begun, and Wu Chen placed a bet of 1 million chips. Upon seeing that Wu Chen didn't even look at his own cards and was betting purely on luck, the man chose to follow. After the 4th card was revealed, Wu Chen added another 1,000,000 chips, but the man remained confident as he had AK in his hand and there was AK on the table. If Wu Chen didn't have a pair, the man would win for sure. He then pushed all his chips forward, saying, "If that's the case, I'll follow." On the sidelines, Li Ruotai analyzed the situation at the table. Based on the open cards, his brother-in-law had a higher chance of winning. However, since Wu Chen had not seen his hidden cards, the outcome was still uncertain. At the next moment, Wu Chen picked up his hidden card to look at it, and immediately announced that he would follow. The man raised his glasses and proposed raising the stakes. Wu Chen agreed and requested 200 million chips. Li Ruotai did not intervene and gestured for 2 women to bring the chips. When the chips arrived, Wu Chen stated that he bet 100 million chips and placed his hand on his cards, which the man took notice of. Based on their previous games, the man deduced that Wu Chen only put his hand on the hidden card when he had a strong hand. After weighing his options, the man decided to fold and revealed that he had a king, adding a snarky comment. "Mr. Wu, you're too hasty. If you had bet only 50 million, maybe I would have followed. But now you've missed out on 50 million. After hearing this, Li Ruobing asked Wu Chen curiously, "Was your hidden card an ace?" Wu Chen didn't even hide, picked up his hidden card, and revealed it, saying, "No, it was a 2 of hearts." After seeing the hidden card, the man became furious and slammed the table. "You cheated me." Wu Chen simply shrugged it off and said, "Don't blame me for your own mistakes." But the man quickly regained his composure, thinking that he had observed another habit of Wu Chen's habit. Soon, the 31st round began. On the expert side, the visible cards were Diamond 7, Heart 9, Spade 6, and 3. On Wu Chen's side, he had a Spade 7, Club 6, Club 9, and Heart 3. After looking at his hidden cards, Diamond 9, the expert began to analyze the situation. Both sides had similar visible cards, but the man thought that it was unlikely for Wu Chen's hidden card to be a spade 9, given the rarity of 4 nines appearing in one game. Furthermore, Wu Chen had not even looked at his own hidden card yet. With his analysis complete, the man signaled to Shen Guanjuan to close the deal and confidently declared, "Let's settle it with one hand. All in. 200 million. Unfazed, Wu Chen nonchalantly responded and pushed his chips forward. "No problem, I'll follow." His move undoubtedly left everyone present in a brief state of shock. Li Ruobing thought it was too risky, while Li Ruotai had planned to follow his sister's lead but decided to believe in his brother-in-law's good luck. After all, no one had any certainty in such matters. On the other hand, Shen Guanjuan saw Wu Chen's move as a bold one that was in line with their intentions. The expert immediately chose to follow suit. After following, he did not forget to mock Wu Chen. "Young people, the most important part of gambling is to stay patient. If you're not being able to control your emotions like that, you won't go far. How do you dare to follow without looking at your hidden card? You think you are the god of gambling?" After saying this, the man directly slammed his hidden card, square 9, onto the table. "I'll just consider your 200 million as your tuition fee." When square 9 appeared, 2 different expressions appeared on the field. Shen Guanjuan was excited, while Li Ruotai and Li Ruobing looked worried. Shen Guanjuan then smirked and looked towards Li Ruotai. "Mr. Li, with your wealth, you shouldn't mind if I take a little more money, should you?" Li Ruotai had no choice but to accept his fate and coldly snorted in resignation. At the next moment, Wu Chen's voice sounded in the field. "You all have said enough. Now you can take a look for yourselves." The expert who was previously composed was now flustered. He knew only someone who was confident in their winning hand could remain calm like Wu Chen. He suddenly reached for Wu Chen's position and noticed that was a spade 9 in his hand. "This is impossible. You never saw the bottom card. How did you know it was a spade 9? Wu Chen's lips curled into a smile and he chuckled. "Did you really think I didn't see my hidden card? I have been keeping my hand on it since the first round. Do you know why? You thought I was nervous, but I was peeking at the bottom card when you weren't paying attention. Your skills are good, but you are too arrogant. Do you really think you can understand my strategy with just a few hands? You're too naive. This was all a trap, and you've been the prey since the beginning." On Li Ruotai's side, he slapped Shen Guanjuan on the shoulder when he saw him silenced. "Mr. Shen, the gambling money you used to smash the place should have been raised from everywhere. Now you have more trouble." Shen Guanjuan's face was full of despair, and he just wanted to leave. As he was about to call his people and leave, Wu Chen stopped them. "Did I tell you to leave?" Shen Guanjuan became unhappy at Wu Chen's interference. "What's going on, Mr. Li? Is this how your Li family treats guests? What's the point of not letting us leave after losing money?" Li Ruotai was also confused about why Wu Chen wouldn't let them go. Wu Chen didn't directly answer Li Ruotai's question. Instead, he asked him if he had a knife on him. Li Ruotai took out a small knife and jokingly asked, "Do you know how to play with it, brother-in-law?" Wu Chen took the knife and flicked it, saying, "What do you think?" He then approached the man brought by Shen Guanjuan with a stern expression. Upon reaching him, Wu Chen grabbed his hand and the man was immediately frightened. Suddenly, a spade 8 fell from the man's sleeve. Li Ruotai was utterly shocked. Someone actually cheated in his own casino. Wu Chen had been aware of the opponent's trick all along and questioned him. "Do you really think no one saw you put that spade A in your sleeve on the 15th round?" Wu Chen did not reveal the cheating immediately only because he had not yet won everything over. Upon hearing Wu Chen's explanation, Li Ruotai became angry and asked if Shen Guanjuan was aware of the cheating. Despite the man's attempts to deny the cheating, Wu Chen didn't give him a chance to struggle. He slammed him on the table and pressed his hand down, stating that as an experienced player, the man should know the consequences of cheating. In the next moment, Wu Chen grabbed his knife and struck toward the man's hand. "Losing your hand!" He chopped off the man's hand, as punishment for breaking the rules. Afterward, Wu Chen asked Shen Guanjuan if he had anything to say. Shen, who had never seen such an act before, quickly distanced himself from the responsibility, stating that it was all the man's idea. With the matter resolved, Wu Chen returned the knife to Li Ruotai, asked him to clean up the scene, and advised him not to take action against them in the club. As Wu Chen and Li Ruobing walked out together, she asked if it was exciting and felt good to chop someone's hand off. Wu Chen replied that he didn't feel anything, and Li Ruobing was surprised at how calm he was. She wondered if Wu Chen had killed someone before. After successfully resolving the club incident, Wu Chen parted ways with Li Ruotai and left with Li Ruobing. Li Ruobing was pleasantly surprised by Wu Chen's performance, and didn't expect him to be such a skilled gambler. Wu Chen merely replied, "Who would dislike having more skills? Also, don't forget to send me the gratitude fee." As soon as she heard the word money, Li Ruobing's face immediately fell. "Is money all you think about?" she asked, irritated. In the next moment, Wu Chen coldly glanced at the car behind him. Li Ruobing was a little confused by Wu Chen's sudden change in demeanor. Was he angry? As a man, how can he be so petty? Wu Chen calmly lay back in his seat and replied, "I noticed that a car has been following us. The bodyguards in front also received information that someone is tracking them." Li Ruobing was impatient and said, "Just shake them off. Ding Reilong, that pervert, still likes to send people to track me." However, Wu Chen knew that the people following them were not sent by Ding Reilong and that they weren't after Li Ruobing. But he chose not to tell her the truth. Instead, he took the opportunity to hold her hand and comfort her. "Don't be afraid, Ruobing. I'll always be by your side." When Wu Chen grabbed her hand, Li Ruobing turned her head thinking, "Is he acting?" But his acting skills were truly impressive, and even almost fooled me. Despite her suspicions, Li Ruobing didn't want to be taken advantage of and withdrew her hand from Wu Chen's grip, adjusting her clothes instead. "You accomplished something big today, so let me treat you to something delicious," she offered. They arrived at a high-end restaurant, which surprised Wu Chen since Li Ruobing is a frequent here and many people here knew her. However, that was her motive, as she explained that she wanted to introduce him to more people. Sure enough, before they could even order, the chairman of Longqing Innovation Group, Han Deli, greeted them. Li Ruobing made no attempt to hide anything and introduced Wu Chen as her boyfriend. Han Deli graciously reached out his hand and they shook hands. However, Han Deli had to leave soon after as he had some urgent matters to attend to. As Li Ruobing was about to share more about Han Deli, Wu Chen interrupted her, saying that he knew more about him than she did. Being an intelligence agent, this wasn't an exaggeration. He then cautioned her. "By the way, not everyone wants to be friends with you." Li Ruobing calmly replied, "Of course, I have many enemies, especially women. But to be her enemy, isn't that a foolish thing to do?" Suddenly, a voice with a hint of sarcasm interrupted them. "Isn't this Miss Li? When did you start hiring toy boys?" The person's name is Lu Caixio, formerly known as Lu Lijuan, a 32-year-old woman who married Lu Guangning, the chairman of Dahai Julie Group, 7 years ago. She has a son with him and also founded Yunxiu Fashion with her husband's support. Speaking of which, this woman is Li Ruobing's business rival. After Lu Caixio's arrival, she started mocking Li Ruobing relentlessly. Li Ruobing was deeply offended by Lu Caixio's insults, but she remained silent out of respect for her husband's position. Despite this, Lu Caixio didn't appreciate it and continued to behave disrespectfully. Li Ruobing had never been humiliated like this before. She picked up the coffee on the table and was about to pour it on her. At that moment, Wu Chen intervened, holding her hand and calming her down. He assured her that he would handle the situation. Wu Chen walked up to Lu Caixio and carefully analyzed her, touching his chin. Lu Caixio frowned and asked, "Why are you staring at me like that?" Wu Chen smiled and said, "You look familiar." Suddenly, he snapped his fingers and exclaimed, "I remember now. You used to work at a nightclub, didn't you?" Lu Caixio was furious and humiliated. "How dare you defame me? Do you even know who I am?" Wu Chen sneered. "Defame? Do you really think changing your appearance can erase your past glory?" Lu Caixio began to panic, wondering how Wu Chen knew about her past working at a nightclub and undergoing plastic surgery, a secret known to almost no one. Wu Chen glanced at Li Ruobing, who was standing up, and said, "This is nothing. I'll give you an even bigger scoop later." Just then, Lu Guangning entered the room, and Lu Saixio threw herself into his arms, recounting Wu Chen's accusations. Lu Guangning comforted her and promised to handle the situation. He then turned his angry gaze toward Wu Chen and demanded to know who he was. "This is my boyfriend, Wu Chen," Li Ruobing calmly replied, refusing to lower her attitude despite Lu Guangning's aggressive behavior. Lu Guangning was not a pushover either. He let go of Lu Saixio and confronted Wu Chen. "You insulted my wife, which is like slapping me in the face. What do you suggest we do?" Wu Chen fearlessly retorted. "I have someone who can resolve this issue." "Resolved it?" exclaimed Lu Guangning. "Do you think just because you're close to Li Ruobing, I can't do anything to you?" Wu Chen shook his head. "I never said the person who would assist me is Li Ruobing, but instead Ma Huifang." Lu Guangning was stunned. "How do you know her?" Li Ruobing did not expect that just a name could cause the man who had ruled the East Sea for many years to change his expression suddenly. Wu Chen ignored Lu Guangnyan's questioning and gestured to him to follow. Lu Guangnian followed Wu Chen to a nearby location with a serious expression. When they arrived, Wu Chen spoke up. "Now I have 2 stories to tell you. The first one is about your wife, Lu Saixio, also known as Lu Lijuan. 10 years ago, Lu Lijuan's man persuaded her to work in a nightclub to make money, where she met a wealthy man. This man had made his fortune through demolition work, but when he was young, he had a dispute with someone and ended up in the hospital. The doctor told him that he might become infertile in the future. As diagnosed by the doctor, the incident left him sterile, and he even failed to conceive through artificial insemination. However, this man revealed accidentally this secret to Lu Lijuan, now known as Lu Saixio, when he was drunk. Therefore, an evil plan was hatched, centered around this man. Lu Lijuan changed her appearance and name to Lu Saixio, and with the help of her man, she became the wealthy man's mistress. She became pregnant within 3 months, giving birth to the boy that Lu Guangnian most wanted. However, the shocking truth was that the child was not Lu Guangnian's but Lu Saixio's man. Even the paternity test was tampered with by them, who paid a high price to bribe the doctor to alter the results. Actually, Lu Guangnian, you should have already suspected that since the child did not resemble you in any way. However, your desire for a child made you ignore it. And that wasn't the end of it. Lu Lijuan's true plan was to kill you in an accident, and then she and her man would take all of your property." Although Lu Guangnian was furious after listening, he still didn't believe Wu Chen. After all, Wu Chen was just an outsider, and it was difficult for Lu Guangnian to believe him with just a few words. Despite Lu Guangnian's mistrust, Wu Chen continued to add that your wife's cousin, who worked in your company, is not really her cousin but her lover, and they often take advantage of your absence to have fun together. Just yesterday afternoon, they went out and enjoyed themselves. To avoid suspicion, they used the stairs. You can check the surveillance footage to confirm. And if you still don't believe me, you can confront your wife by saying. After deciding on his course of action, Lu Guangnian confronted Lu Saixio and followed Wu Chen's advice by first asking about her cousin's whereabouts the previous day and if he had been at the company all day. Lu Saixio initially nodded in agreement with Lu Guangnian. It was at this moment that Lu Guangnian started to cheat her. "I remember your cousin went to see a client yesterday," he said. Lu Saixio was suddenly shocked and quickly changed her story, saying, "It's possible that my cousin remembered it wrong." Seeing Lu Saixio still trying to argue, Lu Guangnian's face immediately turned dark. "Is it? I'll call and ask then," he said. Lu Saixio panicked and resorted to emotional manipulation, questioning Lu Guangnian. "Honey, why are you asking these questions? That guy insulted me and you're not going to do anything about it. Don't you love me and our son?" If she hadn't said the last sentence, it might have been better, but when she mentioned their son, Lu Guangning couldn't take it anymore and slapped her in the face. "You lying woman, how long are you going to deceive me? Get out of here now, I'll deal with you later." Lu Saixio, who was covering her red cheek, fled from the scene. At this moment, Lu Guangning's face was full of gloom. Li Ruobing broke the silence and promised to keep the events of the day a secret. Lu Guangnian was left with a heavy heart, realizing that his desire for a successor had been taken advantage of. At this thought, Lu Guangning clenched his fists, then released and sighed helplessly. It seems like I won't have a successor in this lifetime. Just then, Wu Chen spoke up again. Boss Lu, actually you have an excellent son. Lu Guangning was stunned and looked at Wu Chen with an unreadable expression. Wu Chen didn't hesitate and continued. Boss Lu, let me tell you the second story.